and a blessed feast to all Israel. I would like to accommodate also those who can hear English, but I will talk much in Shona. Let's thank the Most High for taking us this far in these hard times, as we are in the 7th month, being the month Tishri. There's an event which happened on this very month, which was the great day of atonement, when Christ entered the most holy place on 22 October. That's why this truth is under the third angel's message. Why? Because without the sanctuary truth, there is no a vibe in the message. When we looked at the time Ellen White received her first vision, right? He was taken up and she saw the Advent movement heading to the New Jerusalem, right? But there is a vision whereby she saw the fourth commandment in the sanctuary, right? But before she saw that fourth commandment being bright, I would want us to take note of this point. She first saw Christ entering the most holy place. That's why when Israel went out of Egypt, when they sojourned out of Egypt, there was a pillar of cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night. But for Christ to lead the children of Israel to Canaan, the pillar of cloud by day and the pillar of fire by night was to lead them there. Are we together? But the pillar, the tabernacle or the sanctuary was the one which was hosting the pillar and the pillar of fire and the pillar of cloud when they were sojourning to the promised land. So our subject for today is titled The Journey to the Promised Land. Are we together? I would want us first to read, before we go into our lesson, WM 28.2. I want us to know exactly what is the program which is supposed to be followed by the church of today. What is the title?
God's program for His church.
God's program for His church. Can you read louder?
The reason why God's people are not more spiritually minded.
The reason why God's people are not spiritually minded. Our minds must rest upon spiritual things.
Yeah.
Let's go on.
The reason why God's people are not more spiritually minded and have not more faith.
You have not more faith. So without faith, you are doing nothing. You are totally doing nothing. When you tell yourself that you are a Christian, while you don't have faith. You see? So to have less faith, can you go on?
The reason why God's people are not more spiritually minded and they have not more faith, I have been shown.
Read louder.
I have been shown is because they are narrowed up with selfishness.
Right? So the reason why they have no more faith, it is because of selfishness. Selfishness, I'll go on.
The prophet is addressing Sabbath keepers.
It's saying the prophet is addressing Sabbath keepers.
Not sinners.
Not sinners.
Not unbelievers.
Not unbelievers.
But those.
So this lesson is for Israel. Yes. It's not going to those who doesn't keep the Sabbath. Are we together there?
Yeah.
Go on. But those who
make great pretensions
to godliness.
godliness.
So there is a great pretension of godliness among Sabbath keepers.
Yeah.
God sees his people as though they are pretending to keep his laws. Are we together?
Yeah.
Go on, let's hear.
It is not the abundance of your meetings that God accepts.
Right?
It is not the numerous prayers.
Inzwaika akuzi kuungana gungano guru runoita kuti Mwari vadiko vange vachinzi aiwa pano vari kudiko vari kunamatiwa. Chiko famba nayo zvikanzi
it is not the numerous prayers.
Haisi minamato mizhinji. You know, Ellen White says in this book Prayer, aitoti, if you shouldn't pray more than 2 minutes if you are making a public prayer. 1 or 2 minutes is more when you are making a prayer in public. So minamato mizhinji haisiyozve inoita kuti chii kunzi aiwa ava ndo vananiko vana Mwari kana kuti vari kuita chinhu chakadiko chakanaka. So we would want to see from the subject God's program for his church. That's the title. Ndo musoro uri panyaya yechi yepana WM 28.2. Go on.
But it is not the numerous prayers, but
it is not the abundance.
It is not the abundance of your meetings that God accepts. It is not the numerous prayers, but the right doing.
The right doing. You see, that's the program for God's church. That's why you see on that quotation, it says, what is a church? These are church. Who is Israel, in fact? These are the church members of today. And what is a church? Yes. These are the people who are doing the right thing at the right time. Are we together then? So go on, but the right doing the right thing
at the right time.
At the right time. Ndokunzi wapinda pa program yaniko ya Mwari. That's the program, God's program for his church. You can go on with the chapter. That's what God has made for his peculiar people. That's the program. Doing the right thing at the right time. Are we together there? For example, we are Sabbath keepers, right? If you are keeping the Sabbath, you should keep the Sabbath at the what? At the right time. Are we together? If you think of keeping anything which is in the Bible, do it at the right time if God commands it to be done at the right time. If the Sabbath was established on the 7th day, you should also keep the Sabbath on the 7th day. That's doing the right thing at the right time. Today is the new moon. Today is the new moon. You should be keeping the new moon at the what? At the right time. Otherwise, you will fail to recognize the Day of Atonement, and you will fail also to keep the Feast of Tabernacles at the right time. Someone asked, how did Christ keep the new moon? But there's no way, this program, there is no way you can keep the Lord's Supper or the Passover without first keeping the new moon. That's why on Deuteronomy chapter 16, it says, observe the month of Abib, so that you can keep the Passover. You should first observe the month, then you can keep the feasts. That's why on Psalm 104 verse 19, it tells you that the moon is there to mark the seasons. Right? Do you understand? So there is no way you can say, I keep the Sabbath, when you don't really know what is the first day of the week. You should first number days so that you can keep the Sabbath. You should also number months so that you can keep a feast. That's doing the right thing at the right time. You can't say you keep the Sabbath when you don't even know what is the first day of the week. You can't go to the seventh day when you don't pass through the first, the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth, the sixth, until the seventh. Are you with me there? So let's go into our lesson and understand what is really the purpose of God for his people. But our title for this lesson is The Journey to the Promised Land. What is really a journey? What is really a journey? A journey is a set amount of traveling. Right? Chinano chekuti kana muchifamba mukuziva kuti tiri kudi tiri kuendepi uye tiri kusvikira papi. Tiri tose. Saka hazvigoni kuti uti une rwendo rusina kwekuguma. Rusina parinoperera. A journey should have a destiny. As Christians of today, we would want to see what's really our journey. Are we going to the same place? Are you with me, brethren? So, the title is titled Journey to the Promised Land. So, from the definition, it is a set amount of traveling, right? A set amount of traveling. So the Lord really knows the program for his church until they are in heaven. Are you with me? There are some right now who are looking forward to see the second coming of Christ. Like right now, that Christ can appear anytime, right? That's the thought of some, that's the ideology of some Christians or some Sabbath keepers or some Adventists, right? That Christ is appearing anytime. But you are forgetting there is a time of trouble which comes first before the second coming of Christ. And those who know that the time of trouble is coming first are also forgetting that there is a need of a shelter in that time of trouble. And what is a shelter? Brethren, are we together there? Okay, let's go on. Can you read on Exodus chapter 40, verse 38?
Verse 38. For the cloud of the Lord was upon the tabernacle by day, and fire was on it by night, and in the sight of all the house of Israel throughout all their journeys.
So on this journey, you should also have a tabernacle. Are you with me? Why am I saying this? Go down. Can you read on PK 7:13.1?
That which God purposed to do.
Right? That which God purposed to do with
for the world.
For the world. So the God is worried about the world. Why? Because there is a controversy there is a battle between Christ and what? And Satan. Are you with me? Who is going to win this war? That's why that which God purposed to do for the world, to Israel. Through Israel, you see. So the Israel is like an agent to help the world to come to Christ. So who is this church? The church is the one with that program of doing the right thing at the what? At the right time. When you call for a feast, when you go for a Sabbath, you should be seen coming to Sabbath at the right time. Doing the right thing. Keeping the Sabbath from sunset to sunset. Are you with me, brethren? You should be seen when you say Matumba Atanga or the Feast of Tabernacles. You should be seen observing first the month before you keep that feast. Right? Go on. The chosen nation.
Okay.
That which
that which God purposed to do
for the world
through Israel, the chosen nation.
Yeah.
He will finally accomplish through his church on earth today.
Are you with me, brethren? He will finally accomplish through his church on earth today. That's why we went back at Exodus during the time when the children of Israel were coming out of Egypt, right? And it is said, go on from Exodus, can you repeat that verse from chapter 40, verse 38?
For the cloud of the Lord was upon the tabernacle by day, and fire was on it by night,
right,
in the sight of all the house of Israel,
right,
throughout all their journeys.
You see, so they had all their journeys. They were led by a pillar of cloud and a pillar of fire. But the tabernacle was the one which was hosting this truth. So this program, you can't be said you are part of Israel. Are you with me? Or you are part of the church when you don't have a tabernacle amongst yourselves. That's why the third angel's message had a sanctuary truth. There was no way this message was going to succeed without this sanctuary truth. Because the truth of the Sabbath was in the sanctuary, in the ark. Are you with me? That's where the 10 commandments were. Yeah?
Yeah.
So, before you go to the 10 commandments, right, you first come into the sanctuary. Huh? You can't win this war without the sanctuary, without the tabernacle. To strength, it is the tabernacle of strength. Are you with me? Which gives you power to keep on what? Moving. That's why the Ellen White says the 10 commandments only condemns. Huh?
Yes.
But the ceremonial law, what does the ceremonial do? Help us to what? To keep those laws. And we are found redeemed by the ceremonial law.
Yes.
Are you with me, brethren? Go on. Let's go on. We would want to read from Review and Herald, December 26, 1907, paragraph 19. We would want to know what is really the purpose of God for his people. Go on.
The Lord's purpose for his people.
The Lord's purpose for his people
have ever been the same.
Have ever been the same. So God has never changed the purpose for his people.
Yes.
Apana chakachinja and it.
He desires to bestow on the children of men the riches of eternal inheritance.
There is an eternal inheritance for God's people. From the beginning of the world, there is an eternal inheritance for what? For God's people. Go on. His kingdom
is an everlasting kingdom.
So the kingdom is an eternal inheritance for what? For God's people. Go on. When those
who choose
yes,
to become obedient subjects of the Most High,
right,
are finally saved in the kingdom of glory.
So we are looking forward to the kingdom of glory, right?
God's purpose for mankind would have been fulfilled.
Right? Are you with me, brethren? So I would only want us to realize this, that the purpose of God for his what? For his people is the same, was the same from the beginning, right? To possess what? The kingdom of glory. Now let's move on. We want to read on letters on manuscript, letter 259, 1903, paragraph 3, which says the Son of God.
The Son of God, enshrouded in the pillar of cloud, was the leader of the children of Israel.
So, the Son of God enshrouded in the pillar of cloud was the leader. So, there is an invisible leader, which is the invisible leader is the one leading the children of Israel to the promised land. Are we together? And there should be also a visible leader.
Amen.
Are you with me? This is the hierarchy, which should be seen in God's church. There should be invisible leader. There should be an invisible leader and a visible leader. Without going much far, without going to the spiritual gifts or the offices, right? There should be a invisible leader and a visible leader.
Amen.
In Israel. Israel of today, right? Go on.
The Son of God, enshrouded in the pillar of cloud,
Right.
was the leader of the children of Israel, overseeing every phase of their experience.
So this invisible leader was overseeing, in fact, he was overseeing what?
Every phase.
Every phase of their experience.
Amen.
Are you with me? So, to be precise with you, having a visible leader should give you confidence that we are having an invisible leader. But that invisible leader should be a prophet.
Yes.
Are you with me? Not someone who just reads and come to your pulpit and say what, like me, like what I'm doing. And a visible leader should give you confidence that God is leading you, and should be giving you confidence that he has a direct communication with heaven. Are you with me, brethren? Let's go on. Let's move on. Fleeing from Pharaoh. Sorry, he educated.
He educated and disciplined them, often testing their faith.
Are you with me? So there is a discipline which we should go through, and some testings which we should go through before we enter the promised land. Go on.
Fleeing from Pharaoh's host, they found themselves at one time hemmed in by the inaccessible mountains, with the Red Sea before them, and the enemy following hard after.
So, pakaitachi vakange vari sort of pampata, right? In between the mountains, right? And makomo aya ekuti haukwanisi kudiko kugona kuma climber what is, right? And papa ne Red Sea futi pamberi pavo. You see, this is a test of faith for them. So there is also a situation when Israel comes to a testing time, I remember this quotation in Timely Greetings, right? Which say, viewing the situation, nezisore nyama, waitoona unge Israel yatodiko, yatopererwa ende yaparara. Anditi? Greetings. Go on. The command came.
Go forward. And as they obeyed, the water parted
before them, right? So, our responsibility now, our duty now is to go forward. Are you with me? To overcome every test, to overcome every trial, we should go on, we should move on. Are you with me? I remember this scenario when they were on the Jordan River, right? When they wanted to cross Jordan River to go to the promised land, what made them conquer? What made them have power to overcome that test? It was a go forward. Going forward makes every Christian to overcome sin and trials and tests. Are you with me, brethren? Because we are on a journey. You can't reverse, but the only means to overcome is to what? Is to move forward. Are you with me? Progressing with light. When we are in this program, the program of the church is doing the right thing at the right time. But the only means to keep on moving is to also progress with what? With light. This going forward made the children of Israel to pass through the Red Sea. Let's move on. In
their journeys,
Moses,
the visible leader of the Israelites,
right,
was admitted into the secret
councils of the Most High. So amongst ourselves, there should be someone, a visible leader, who should be the secret, who should be part, who should be admitted into the secret councils of the Most High. Are we together, brethren? Someone who has a communication with what? With the invisible leader. Right? Go on.
The people were given evidence
right,
that Moses did indeed talk with God, receiving from him the instruction given them.
So there should be also an evidence of that prophet, because there are many false prophets who have gone into the what? Into this world. So there should be also an evidence of that living prophet amongst us. Are you with me? As with Moses. Okay, go on.
Okay. Christ
would have led.
Christ would have led the people into the promised land by a much more Christ would have led the people into the promised land by a much more direct route had they shown a willingness to be guided by him and to place their dependence on him.
Are you with me, brethren? The dependence is the other means God says that we are his people. You hear on this one, it's saying if there should have been a direct route, but it took 40 years in the wilderness, but it was a 3 days journey to the promised land. But because we don't have a total dependence, we don't totally depend on God, right? It is making us fail to have a less road to the promised land. I want us to move on to where it says the instruction given to Moses.
The instruction given to Moses,
right,
for ancient Israel, with their sharp, rigid outlines, are to be studied and obeyed by the people of God today.
The instruction given to Moses, right? For ancient Israel, with their sharp, rigid outlines, are to be studied and obeyed by the people of God today. All the instruction, Israel, the Israel of old were given the statutes, the judgments, the testimonies, the ordinances, right?
Yes.
To lead them, the 10 commandments, to lead them into the promised land. That was the instruction given to what? To Israel, right? And it is to be obeyed and studied by the Israel of today.
Yeah.
So it is our duty and responsibility of us today as God's people to study those laws, the instructions which were given to what? To Israel of old, right? Go on.
God desires his people to study this lesson and not to follow their own judgment.
So God says that some people are good at following their own judgment,
making their own plans,
on top of God's plan. They make their own plans. Okay, go on.
God has shown that there is only one
Lord,
and that he rules in the heavens, has given laws that all are to obey,
and has given laws, not the 10 commandments only, but laws If we go on Deuteronomy chapter 6, you would see that not only the 10 commandments were given on Sinai, and in Nehemiah 9 verse 18 can give you evidence that not only the 10 commandments were given on what? On Mount Sinai. Go on.
Let us study the experience of the children of Israel and the Lord's dealings with them. His encouragement of the obedient and the punishment that came upon those who were determined to carry out their own devisings.
So, the mindset which want to carry forward God's work with their own devices, their own thinkings, or their own thoughts, right, on God's program, they are going to what? They are going to fail. The dealings of God with His people should be straight from what? From His throne. Through His what? Through His prophet. Not what we are having now. Can you go on? Move on.
Sorry, can I repeat? His encouragement of the obedient and the punishment that came upon those who determined to carry out their own devisings, supposing that finite human beings could become an authoritative power to which all must concede.
Okay. Without wasting much of our time, I want us to look back at the title. The title is saying, Journey to the what? To the Promised Land. Right. We want to read on Revelation chapter 14, verse 1. Right?
And I looked, and lo, a lamb stood on Mount Zion, and with him 144,000, having his father's name written in their foreheads.
In their foreheads. So the saints are standing on Mount Zion with the lamb, right? But what is Mount Zion? You can search, what is Mount Zion? Mount Zion is the whole land of Israel, or it is Jerusalem. On another text, on another definition, it says it is Jerusalem, or it is the whole land of Israel. Mount Zion is not in heaven.
Yeah, true.
If you have that quote or that verse, help me with it. But Mount Zion is only on earth. And it is saying it is the whole land of what? Of Israel, or it is Jerusalem. Or another one says it is a mountain in Israel. So on Revelation 14 verse 1, we should understand that it is not a trip, that is leading the people into Jerusalem, or to stand on Mount Zion. It is not a just normal luxurious trip, but it is doing the right thing at the right time. That's why you see the 144,000 all on Mount Zion. They are following the Lamb whithersoever he goeth. Are you with me, brethren? Okay, let's move on to CG 565.1.
Parents may bring children with them to the promised land.
What has said?
God has permitted light from His throne to shine all along the path of life.
Right.
A pillar of cloud by day.
So, in our lesson, we understand that God is leading us throughout the way, right? To the what? Toward the way of life. To the what? To the promised land. Go on.
A pillar of cloud.
There should be a pillar of cloud by day.
A pillar of fire by night.
This is the presence of Christ, right?
He's moving before us.
In the tabernacle, remember, Christ will be with us. But we should understand that it is a part of the sanctuary truth. Because that pillar of cloud by day and pillar of fire by night was being hosted by the tabernacle. Right? Go on.
A A pillar of cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night is moving before us as before ancient Israel.
Right?
It is the privilege of Christian parents
Of Christian parents today. So this is not a Jewish system that we are talking of. It is a Christian system that we must obey. Go on. As it was.
It is the privilege of Christian parents today, as it was the privilege of God's people of old, to bring their children with them
to the promised land. So it is our duty to also bring our children to the promised land. Let's not belittle this program. Okay, let's move on to Jeremiah chapter 16, verse 14 to 16.
Therefore, behold, the days come. Said the
But I want us to put in our minds that so what makes the 144,000 to stand on Mount Zion? I told you that it is not just a luxurious trip that we are having now, like going to Dubai to relax, We really want to know what makes the 144,000 to stand on Mount Zion. Are we together? Go on. Therefore,
behold, the days come, said the Lord, that it shall no more be said, the Lord liveth that brought the children out of
the children of Israel
out of the land of Egypt.
Right?
But the Lord liveth that brought up the children of Israel from the land of the north, and from all the lands whither he had driven them.
So
and I will bring them again into their land.
Right. So there is no way the Lord can take the people from the north, from the west, from all parts of the world, right? Without a place. So there is a gathering time, and almost everyone knows that it is going to be a gathering time. But where are we going? What is really the location of the gathering? What is the place of that gathering? It is in what? It is in Israel. The what? The promised land. Okay, go on.
Verse 16. Behold, I will send for many fishers.
Right?
Said the Lord.
So, this gathering can only happen if there are fishers. Who can fish what? God's people from every part of the what? Of the globe. Okay, go on.
Behold, I will send for many fishers, said the Lord, and they shall fish them. And after I will send for many hunters, and they shall hunt them from every mountain and from every hill.
You really know that a mountain is a church. So those fishermen will fish. Will fish God's people from the churches. Are you with me?
Yes.
From the churches. I hear others saying, why do you come exactly to the church instead of going to those who don't even know the gospel, or those who don't even love God? But there are fishermen which are going straight into the churches to gather the clusters of the what? Of the earth into the garner. Okay, go on. I want us to read on Zechariah chapter 14, verse 16, to understand what makes the 144,000 to be seen in Mount Zion or in Jerusalem. Are we together? Go on.
Verse 16.
Verse 16.
And it shall come to pass,
right,
that everyone that is left of all the nations which come against Jerusalem,
right,
shall even go up from year to
year
to worship the King,
right,
the Lord of hosts,
yes,
and to keep the Feast of Tabernacles.
So the people, the saints of the Most High, should go to Jerusalem for what? To keep a feast. Are you with me? To keep a feast. The Feast of what? The Feast of Tabernacles. Huh? That's why we are looking forward to the Feast of Tabernacle. That's doing the right thing at the right time. Are you with me? Also at the right place. Are you with me, brethren? Let's move on. Verse 17.
And it shall be that whoso will not come up of all the families of the earth unto Jerusalem to worship the King, the Lord of hosts, even upon them shall be no rain.
Shall be no rain. You know, the former rain was in Jerusalem. Also, the latter rain should be poured where? In Jerusalem. That's the location of the outpouring of the what? Of the Spirit. Not in heathen lands, no, in Jerusalem, where the apple of the eye of God is where? Is located. Are you with me? Go on. The Feast of Tabernacles, I want us to read on PP 541.2.
The Feast of Tabernacles was not only commemorative, but typical. It does not only point back to the wilderness sojourn, but as the Feast of Harvest.
The Feast of Harvest. So on Zechariah chapter 14, we heard that the people, all nations should come to Jerusalem from year to year to worship the Lord of hosts and to keep the Feast of what? Tabernacles. Why tabernacles? It is because it is the feast of what? Of ingathering. It is the feast of what? Of harvest. Are we together? Go on.
It celebrated the ingathering of the fruits of the earth and pointed forward to the great day of final ingathering,
yes.
When the Lord of the harvest shall send forth reapers to gather the tares together in bundles for the fire and to gather the wheat into his camp.
Right. So, you see, there should be a message of gathering, right? The message of reaping. Are you with me? The message of the harvest. Are you with me? So the message of harvest, I want us to understand that it talks of the feasts.
Yes.
It talks of the feasts. That's the only program which can make the 144,000 or the living saints to stand where? On Mount Zion with the Lamb. Okay, let's move on. On James 5 verse 7, what does it say? Be patient.
Be patient, therefore, brethren, unto the coming of the Lord.
Right?
Behold, the husbandman waited for the precious fruit of the earth.
So the husbandman, which is Christ, is also waiting for the precious fruit of the earth.
And the long patience.
So Christ, he has patience for us. That's why now he is intercessing for Israel. He's willing also to see us being what? Being saved. But we are also delaying. We are the ones which are delaying all these programs that are ahead of us. Okay, go on. And he had long patience for it until he received the early and later rain. So we should all look forward to the latter rain. Are we together, brethren? Go on. On 1 TG number 21 and 22, 6.1. We would want to understand on the parable of Matthew 25, right? Which talks of the wise and the foolish virgins, right? We want to understand what is really the oil that was in what? In their vessels. Okay, go on.
The oil A substance which lightens ahead one's path,
Right.
obviously, is figurative of prophetic truth.
Right?
Truth that lightens the heart by unveiling the future.
The future and concretely speaking.
The lamp filled with oil denotes the individual's reservoir of truth
In action, right?
Truth that meets his needs only for the time then present.
Right. So, there should be a truth in action, which is the present truth. Are you with me? Now, there should be a truth in action. Are we together, brethren? Okay, let's move on.
The extra oil
in the vessels
therefore represents
additional truth. So the extra oil represents which were in the wise vessels, which were in the wise vessels represents the additional truth. This parable of Matthew 24, Ellen White says it represents the church. The wise and foolish virgins represent what? The church. So the wise virgins had an additional truth on top of the third angel's message. Right? Because everyone who is in the church agree that they all live in accordance with the what? With the third angel's message. But those who had an extra, those wise virgins who had an extra oil, had an additional truth. Okay, let's move on.
The extra oil.
So, a wise person who is in the church really knows that there is an additional truth. If you think that the third angel's message is sufficient for you, you are not part and parcel of the what? Of the wise virgins. Go on.
The extra oil in the vessels therefore represents additional truth.
Right?
Truth that takes up where the old truth leaves off.
Right?
In other words, the truth in the lamps and the oil in the vessels represent two revealed truths at two different times.
So,
one following the other.
So the extra oil represents two additional truths. Right? Two additional revealed truths at two different times.
One following the other.
One following the what? The other. So after the third angel's message, there were two more messages which were added on top of that what? Of that third angel's message. Are you with me, brethren? Go on. Okay. For example,
while the judgment of the dead is truth in action,
right?
The judgment of the living is truth to go into action as soon as the judgment of the dead is over.
So we should all understand that the third angel's message right now are all the truths. Are all the truths. But those truths, the old truths, are sufficient for us today. They are sufficient for us today. But we should also understand that there are additional what? There are additional truths on top of the what? Of the third angel's message.
Yes.
Okay, let's move on to Zechariah 14 to conclude our lesson. And the men,
verse 11. And the men shall dwell in it, and they shall be no more utter destruction, but Jerusalem shall be safely inhabited.
Jerusalem shall be safely inhabited. Okay, let's move on to PP 342.1, the great plan of redemption.
The great plan of redemption results in fully bringing back the world into God's favor.
Right?
All that was lost by sin is restored.
All that was lost by sin is going to be restored. You would see that the Jerusalem, the children of Israel were held captivity many times. And all Israel, like now, is in Assyria until today, which is in the parts of the whole earth until what? The time of the restoration of what? Of all things. So going back into the land of promise is one of the what? Of the things that must be what? That must be restored. Okay, let's move on.
Not only man, but the earth is redeemed to be the eternal abode of the obedient.
So the earth, this kingdom, is going to be set on earth. That is the what? The eternal abode of the obedient. Okay, let's just jump to Daniel chapter 7, verse 15 to 18 to understand something.
I, Daniel, was grieved in the spirit.
Mm-hmm.
In the midst of my body,
right?
The visions of my head troubled me.
Mm-hmm.
I came near unto one of them that stood by,
right?
and asked him the truth of all this.
The truth of all this, right?
So he told me, and he made me know the interpretation of the thing.
So there's nothing symbolic. There is nothing symbolic which needs to be said down there. There's nothing symbolic which means that this vision was interpreted. Are we together?
Yes.
Yes, move on.
These great beasts, which are four
kings, right?
Which shall arise.
This is the interpretation, right? Mm-hmm.
Which shall arise out of the earth.
Which shall rise out of the earth. Mm-hmm.
But the saints of the Most High,
right,
shall take the kingdom,
right,
and possess the kingdom forever.
So first, the saints must possess the kingdom. Are you with me?
Shall take the kingdom.
You know, the saints have to possess the kingdom. Just after those four kings are destroyed. Are you with me? So there is no way you can say the kingdom has to be restored after the second advent of Christ. This scenario is happening before the second advent of Christ. Because on this verse, it is saying the saints of the Most High shall take the kingdom and possess the kingdom forever.
Even forever and ever.
Even forever and ever. But let's understand this, that they are possessing the kingdom before the second advent of Christ. Because these four kings, are sinners, not saints. Are you with me? And all the sinners will be destroyed by the brightness of his coming. But we see that there are four kings which will be destroyed by the saints, not Christ, right? And the saints will possess the kingdom forever and even forever and ever, right? We want to read on PK 678.2. This is our last quote.
In the time of the end, every divine institution is to be restored.
So everything that was lost because of sin has to be restored. And the eternal inheritance for God's people is the kingdom. And that is the purpose of God from the beginning, to have a peculiar people with their what? With their land, right? With their laws, with their king. Are we together? I would want to thank you all for watching this platform at this day, and have a good day, brethren.
BSN TV, the channel which provides meat in juicy